They smile in your face, but behind closed doors, they whisper your destruction. You greet them with love, but they respond with schemes soaked in jealousy. And while you sleep peacefully at night, trusting their words, God has already seen the trap. They're digging beneath your feet. This is not just a warning. This is divine intervention, because what you don't know can harm you, but what God reveals can save your life. Stay with me. You're about to uncover the truth that will shake your soul and wake you up forever. The sun was just rising when Ion felt a tug in his spirit. It was a feeling he couldn't name, only sense, a quiet storm brewing under the calm surface of his life. Everything looked perfect on the outside. A new promotion, a friend circle that cheered him on, a cousin who always called him brother like he meant it. And yet, something felt off. The atmosphere around him had begun to change, and only his spirit noticed. He had always been a quiet one, too kind to offend, too loyal to suspect anyone. But now, God was nudging him, softly at first, then louder through subtle signs. His dreams turned vivid, disturbing. He saw faces smiling and then twisting, voices praising him before turning into whispers and shadows. One morning, Ion woke up gasping for breath, heart racing. He had seen a familiar face, his closest friend, Bilal, standing in a dark alley, speaking to a group of strangers. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Yet Ion knew. His gut screamed it. Why would Bilal be in my dream in that way? He asked himself. Still, he brushed it off. Dreams are just dreams, right? But then, things began to unravel. The first crack appeared when Ion noticed a project he'd been working on for months suddenly getting leaked. Private emails, confidential drafts. Somehow, they were no longer private. The same day, Bilal casually joked about one of the details only Ion knew about. You probably got people watching you, man. Bilal laughed, his eyes narrowing. Better be careful who you trust. Ion smiled on the outside, but on the inside, something cold slithered up his spine. Was that a warning? A threat? Or just mockery? He tried to dismiss the paranoia, but then came the second sign. God doesn't whisper twice if you don't listen the first time. It was his cousin, Samir, who slipped up during a casual lunch. He said, "So, when are you going to tell your boss about the deal with that foreign investor?" Ion froze mid-bite. "What deal?" Samir's eyes widened for a second too long. "Oh, I thought you mentioned it. Must have been someone else." But Ion never had. That night, Ion didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every unusual smile, every joke at his expense. Something was happening. Not just jealousy. This was deeper. A silent conspiracy was crawling through the people he called family and friends. Then came the night that changed everything. He was working late at his home office when his phone lit up with a strange number. Hesitating, he answered. A raspy, unrecognizable voice came through. "They're planning to ruin you. Everything. Reputation, income, peace. They're setting you up. You don't know me, but God does. Don't ignore the signs. Get out before it's too late." Before Ion could speak, the line went dead. He sat frozen for minutes, staring at the wall. His heart pounded so hard it echoed in his ears. Was this a prank? A threat? Or was this divine? For days he said nothing, but he watched, observed, and what he saw broke his spirit. Bilal had started visiting his manager's office frequently, casually name-dropping Ion in conversations he wasn't part of. Samir was meeting unknown people behind closed doors, people who had recently tried to poach Ion from his position. Whispers followed him when he walked into rooms. Laughter stopped suddenly when he appeared. And most disturbing, his work performance was being quietly sabotaged. Emails were sent without his consent. Files were misplaced. One day, he found a report rewritten entirely, but under his name. It contained fake data. He knew then this wasn't paranoia. It was war. But Ion didn't confront them. No, he did something better. He turned to the one who sent the signs. For nights, he prayed with fire in his voice and tears in his eyes. "God, if this is your warning, don't just show me the truth. Give me the wisdom to act on it. Protect me from what I can't see. Reveal every trap before I fall into it. That same week, a package arrived at his door. No name, no return address. Inside was a USB. He plugged it in hesitantly, and what he saw sent chills down his spine. It was a series of screen recordings. Office chats, secret meetings, voice recordings of Bilal, and Samir planning to frame Ayan for embezzlement. The plan was precise. They were using his trust, his kindness, and his silence as weapons against him. But someone he still doesn't know who had been watching, recording, exposing. It was as if God had hired a guardian in human form to catch them in the act. He sat there for hours, his hands trembling. Rage burned in his chest. But more than that was heartbreak. These were people he trusted, people who called him family, and they wanted to bury him. That night, he didn't sleep. But for the first time in weeks, it wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was clarity. The next day, Ayan resigned quietly but confidently. He didn't confront anyone, didn't beg or explain. He left behind a letter to his boss and attached the USB. Then he disappeared. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, because the storm they meant for him was now turning back on them. Sometimes, the greatest protection isn't fighting back. It's listening to the voice no one else can hear, to the signs that feel like coincidences but are actually coded warnings from the divine. Ayan had been saved not by luck, but by divine insight, because when God reveals what's being planned behind you, it means the enemy's time is up. But what happened next? What did Ayan do with the truth? And what became of those who plotted in the shadows? When God lifts the veil, no enemy remains hidden. When the truth comes to light, even the most confident liars tremble. Ayan walked away without a fight, but the war wasn't over, because sometimes your silence is the greatest storm. And now, the trap they set for him was turning into a grave for their own dreams. This is the part they never expected, the part where karma doesn't knock. It crashes in. Ayan vanished without warning. No goodbye, no confrontation, just a trail of silence. He left the company, moved to a different city, and started fresh. Not out of fear, but out of faith. He knew the seeds of betrayal always reap a harvest of destruction. The USB, however, stayed behind. His boss, Mr. Dar, was a sharp man, but he had been blind, manipulated by smooth words and clever smiles. For months, Bilal and Samir had been whispering poison into his ear, making Ayan look like a fraud, a liability. But when he plugged in the USB and saw the recordings, his jaw clenched, his eyes burned. He watched as Bilal laughed about rewriting reports to set Ayan up, heard Samir's voice plotting with outsiders to snatch deals that Ayan had brought in. It was all there, proof beyond denial. Rage flared. The very next morning, the company board was summoned. Bilal walked into that meeting room with his usual confidence, unaware that his world was seconds from collapse. Mr. Dar didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just pressed play. The room went silent. Bilal's smirk faded. Samir's palms started to sweat. There's a special kind of fear that sets in when the truth is louder than your lies. They tried to defend themselves, twisting words, faking confusion, but the evidence was too strong. The board was disgusted. Both were terminated immediately. And not just fired, they were blacklisted, their reputations destroyed in one morning. The doors they thought they owned were now bolted shut forever. But the consequences didn't stop there. Samir returned to his family, humiliated. His parents, once proud of his charm, now saw the rot behind his ambition. Relatives whispered. Friends vanished. And as for Bilal, word spread fast in the industry. No one wanted to hire a snake who bites his own. They tried to move on, but something clung to them, like a curse, because betrayal carries a price. And once exposed, even time doesn't clean the stain. Meanwhile, Ayan was rebuilding his life quietly. He took on freelance work, consulted with international clients, and, ironically, began earning more than ever before. But more than success, he gained peace. Peace that no toxic friendship, no jealous cousin could ever steal again. He spent time in prayer and self-reflection and in silence. He didn't seek revenge, because God had already delivered justice. One evening, Ayan received a message from an unknown number. It read, "I'm sorry. I should never have done it. I lost everything. Please forgive me." It was Bilal. Ion stared at the message, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. Forgiveness didn't mean he had to forget. Forgiveness didn't mean reopening the door. It meant setting his soul free from the weight of their poison. He typed one sentence. "I forgive you, but I won't forget who you are." And then he blocked the number. A few months later, Ion was invited to speak at a leadership seminar. The irony? The event was hosted by the same company that once allowed Bilal and Samir to operate under their roof. Now, they celebrated Ion's story as a lesson in integrity and divine protection. As he stood on stage, facing a crowd of young professionals, he said, "You'll be tempted to trust everyone who claps for you. But remember, applause doesn't mean loyalty. Watch for the signs. Pay attention to what your spirit senses, even when your mind is unsure. Because when God shows you what they're planning behind your back, it's not just a warning. It's a gift. Don't ignore it." The crowd was silent, gripped by his every word, because they knew this wasn't just a story. This was a mirror, a reminder that the danger closest to you is often the one pretending to protect you, and that sometimes the greatest thing you can do is walk away before the explosion. You're not crazy for sensing something's off. You're not paranoid for questioning the smiles that feel too forced. Your spirit is alert because it's being guided. When the people around you shift, when trust starts to tremble, don't ignore the voice within. God doesn't always shout. Sometimes he whispers, and in that whisper, he reveals the traps. He exposes the masks. He shows you what's being done behind your back, not to hurt you, but to save you. So if you're feeling that tug right now, if the atmosphere around you is changing and the people you once trusted suddenly feel different, pay attention. Protect your peace. Move in silence. Because the same God who revealed their plan to Ion is the same God watching over you. And when God fights your battles, no weapon, no lie, and no betrayal can prosper. Now tell me, who do you need to stop explaining yourself to? And what signs have you been ignoring? Comment your truth below. Someone else needs to hear it.